Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Australia has delivered a major breakthrough: the operationalization of the long-pending uranium supply deal between the two countries. Australia is home to some of the world's largest uranium reserves. It will now supply uranium for India's civilian nuclear energy program under international safeguards. And why is this important? It strengthens India's energy security, supports its ambitious target of expanding nuclear power capacity to 100 gigawatts by 2047, and helps reduce dependence on fossil fuels. Strategically, the deal also signals a new level of trust between two key Indo-Pacific partners, deepening cooperation in energy, defense, and critical minerals. Let's in fact take a look at India's major nuclear energy push in recent times. We've seen the Shanti Act having been passed in 2025, and just a couple of months later, this landmark deal is now in force. First up, the Shanti Act. It's a civil nuclear framework overhaul that enables private sector participation in this very sensitive sector. It has unified the law to attract partnerships as well as foreign investments into this critical sector. Second up, the budget boost. The nuclear energy mission is elucidated upon in great detail in the 2025-2026 budget. There is in fact an outlay of rupees 20,000 crore for small modular reactors, and the target is 100 gigawatt nuclear power by 2047. Apart from this, India is also, of course, looking at government support for capacity expansion and focus on, as I mentioned, small modular reactors as well as advanced nuclear technologies as well. So this is what the budget has, of course, emphasized upon. Third up, Adani Atomic Energy. Adani Group has targeted 10 gigawatts capacity by 2035. Land has been identified for future projects for the same. There was, of course, the announcement that was made by their group chairman, Gautam Adani. Global partnerships. India and US are working to facilitate commercial reactor cooperation. Australia has, of course, signed this deal to export uranium to India for nuclear energy and to bolster India's nuclear energy sector. India and France as well are advancing 10,380 megawatt Jetapur nuclear power project in Maharashtra as well. So this is, of course, India's push in recent times towards augmenting its nuclear energy capacity. Meanwhile, joining us on the broadcast for a very, very interesting discussion, Dr. Ajay Dua, senior economist, Major General Sudhakarji, defense and senior geopolitical expert, Group Captain V.N. Jha, former Joint Director DRDO, and Dr. Sharad Kohli, senior economist. I'd like to rope you in, Dr. Ajay Dua. Now, we've seen the world, it's in a constant flux, and we've seen the volatility, especially in the oil prices over the last couple of months, with the Strait of Hormuz being in limbo. In your assessment, how critical is this agreement, especially when India is looking at diversifying its energy portfolio?
Thank you, Priya, for having me in this discussion. I think it's an important landmark with our Prime Minister and Tom Albanese, his counterpart in Australia, signing the agreement today, and its mention finds and it's find a mention in the joint statement which was issued a few hours ago. Australia, as you very rightly said, is a major source of uranium, and we don't produce much uranium in India, what's called U-235, the one which is required for, that's a chemical name, but required for nuclear energy. Also, we do not have too much of local technology available. As we have seen over the years, we continue to languish despite 60 years. The first nuclear reactor in India was set up in Tarapur near Mumbai in 1962. It was a can-do type, saying Canadian exported from Canada. Uranium also came from a nearby source, but the plant load factor, that's the measurement of utilization of the capacity of of the plants so far, which we have set up, has been barely in 2 digits. I don't think we've even crossed 20 or 22% mark. And Tarapur, I remember, was taking so long to set up and so long to, once it had a shutdown, to resume production, that its plant load factor was just 8%. That means 1/12 of the total capacity. Part of the reason was lack of, one was technology, the other was lack of the energy supply. Now that we've got an agreement with a major uranium producing country, I think we would be able to get over one aspect of the entire scheme of things, that is the source of energy. Though we are ourselves, you have the army experts, the armed forces experts also on this panel, that we have been trying to enrich thorium, that we follow a different route, thorium, which is available in India,
Yes.
that we could utilize that for producing, but uranium would be invariably a preferred source. Having said that, I think the scheme of things, it very clearly says Australia is agreeing to supply this as long as India uses it for peaceful purposes. So that should give a reassurance to a lot of other countries that Australia is not doing it to further our nuclear weapons or nuclear strength, because that always remains a concern. Though the 3 or 4 countries of the world think that nuclear weapons is only their kind of a monopoly and others shouldn't really become nuclear powers. Having said that, I am looking forward to it positively, because even today, Australia is a very big exporter of energy to us, but that is coal. So now, instead of coal, which is not a clean energy, we are diversifying. We have done an agreement with them very recently on renewable power, technology exchange, etc. in this field. And in defense today, along with uranium, we have signed that 10-point agreement, or 10-point statement, which is talking of how to strengthen the defense ties between India and Australia. You would recall both of us happen to be members of the Quad already, though Australia has a separate agreement also called the AUKUS,
Yes.
which is with the UK and USA only on defense issues.
Absolutely. I'd like to take forward one of the points that Dr. Ajay Dua has made with Major General Sudhakarji. Dr. Dua did mention thorium, but as of now, the preferred form, as he's pointed out, that the preferred energy source is uranium. Now, what's crucial is that Australia holds about 28% of global uranium reserves, which is about 1.7 million tons. India's current nuclear power capacity is 8.78 gigawatt. Our target is, of course, 100 gigawatt. Now, what this agreement has done is build on the civil nuclear agreement that we signed in 2014. The Shanti Act emphasizes 100 gigawatt of capacity by 2047. How much of a game changer then this deal is in helping India achieve this particular goal, and of course the larger net zero emission goal that we have?
Yeah. Good evening. Thank you for inviting me for your show, and my very warm greetings to very distinguished and esteemed co-panelists. Before I answer your question, let's understand. Firstly, what is the installed capacity of India as far as the generation of electricity is concerned? We need to understand step by step, then I can respond to your question. I hope you will give me that much time. I'll try to keep it as short as possible. So the installed capacity of India, as on today, is 513 gigawatt. Now, what is it that we have been able to achieve? We are ahead of the timeline, stipulated timeline as outlined by Niti Aayog by 5 years. What does it mean? It means that the non-fossil fuels make up slightly over 51% of India's installed electricity generation capacity. And India has achieved this milestone in 2025 as against a target of 2000, 5 years ahead of its original target. The second point that I wish to highlight before I come to your core issue is that over 266 gigawatts comes from clean non-fossil fuel, out of which you have just given out the nuclear part is 8.78 gigawatt, and we are aiming for something like 100 gigawatt by 2047 or earlier than that. Now, the breakdown of this, for the ease of understanding of our viewers, would be solar is around 26%. I'm talking about the non-fossil fuels. Wind is around 10%, hydro is around 10%, and nuclear is around 2%. The latest revised figure percentage, somebody reliable told me it's around 3.1%, but I'll go by what is there in the open source, it's 2%. India is aiming to hit approximately or little more than 60% of its installed electricity capacity from non-fossil fuel sources by 2035. As a long-term measure, India's broader climate goal is to reach a net zero emission by 2070. Now, having given this, broadly it says that the requirement is X and our target is, let's say, Y. We are ahead of the target, certainly, but we are not able to produce what the market actually requires, the economy requires. For that, our dependence, like Dr. Dua brought out very nicely, you see, it's almost 71 to 73% of our energy dependence is on coal. This is of a very high percentage. This has to drastically come down. And to bring it down, this particular deal that we have gone in with, you are talking about Australia, it's 24%. Kazakhstan, if I respect my memory, is around 14%. They're holding as a reserve. Canada is around 10%. So put together all these three countries, they hold good about 51, 52% of the total, the world global reserve. And likewise, they have a country like Bolivia, they have Congo, such like countries, they have a large quantity of uranium. But the issue that Dr. Dua brought out with Australia, this is a different kind of a dynamic with Australia. Australia is the eastern extreme of Indian Ocean region, and we are already having a strategic partnership with this country. Plus, we have a huge Indian diaspora, almost about 10 lakh Indian diaspora there. And we have got lots of agreements with this country, defense agreement, economic agreement, our FTAs, time to time it's getting revised. And also we are going in for a kind of a trilateral grouping. That trilateral has to be understood in the right perspective. India, Indonesia, Australia, India, Australia, Japan, India, Australia, UAE, India, France, and Australia. Why everyone is actually homing on to Australia? That needs to be understood. Is it the epicenter of the energy sources? Yes. We are talking about only the uranium. Let's not forget about the lithium. It has got a very high grade quality of lithium, easily processed. And Australia is one of the countries, apart from China and USA, which has got the soft and the hard variety of machinery to process the rare earth element. Similarly, they have got lots of other things. They have tungsten, they have got tin, they have got coal, like we have said, industrial grade of coal. So by and by, we are investing our time and energy, not only in one basket, but we are actually diversifying in a trilateral grouping. But Australia is emerging to be the center of it. And more than anything else, let's not forget, today, again, Dr. Dua brought out a very nice point, the defense industry. If I have to point out two major deficiencies of defense industry, one would be the aerospace engine, which we are unable to produce. We are dependent on other countries. The other one is shipbuilding. Shipbuilding has to actually give an impetus as far as our country is concerned. Not only we have to improve the infrastructure for which government is already allocated sufficient fund, but also we need to go in for the de facto engine development, that is co-designing, co-development, and co-production and co-deployment. That is the kind of thing is going to happen, which is not figured anywhere in the discussion or in the open source now, since I am taking the liberty I would like to share that this is a point of concern that we need to actually take it forward with the government like Australia. You will not have two countries with such kind of like-minded magnitude lap up as much as possible. And also, last but not the least, is the Indian Ocean strategic rivalry. If at all there is some country which will come to our help or extend a hand of help in times of criticality, my take on the whole issue is that Australia is dependable, despite that it is a member of Five Eyes countries, but still in the Indian Ocean region, it is one of the dependable countries, apart from Indonesia, that our Prime Minister visited, and also New Zealand. Back to API.
All right. I'd like to, in fact, rope in Group Captain VN Jha. As you know, Major General Sudhakarji was pointing out, Australia is, of course, being quoted for its vast energy reserves that it has. But coming to India, now, in India, the nuclear sector, up until now, it's largely operated behind a veil of secrecy. However, we've seen the Shanti Act opening the sector to private as well as foreign investment. Now, with this deal, we'll get the uranium, but a key focus of India's larger nuclear mission is the development of small modular reactors, which of course there's been rupees 20,000 crore that has been allocated in the budget. But what else is really needed to get the ball rolling on that front?
Very good evening to you. Look, I will just focus on your question without going this side or that side or other side. Nuclear power generation and the relevancy of today's MOU signed, agreement signed with Australia. Well, look, clean energy or nuclear energy is the key word of the day when we have got the crunch onto the other sides. Nuclear energy is the closest one which becomes handy, and it will fulfill our ambition. Our ambition is, about what you have already given in your narrative, that we have to reach 100 gigawatts by the year when India wants to become, developed nation. And for that, there is already a yardstick, a milestone given, that aim for 22 plus gigawatt by year 2031-32 and 100 gigawatt by 2047. Well, it's a very good milestone, which we have put it there. Our PM always thinks big. He puts it there. How much we will be able to achieve, we don't know. But then, if we go by the micro say establishment of various units, then the stage is already set. Stage is set that we already have 24 plants which are working, of course, of a smaller capacity, and 11 are in making right now at various stage of completion. So that will happen. Only one very crucial bottleneck was coming is the supply of the fuel. Uranium-235 doesn't exist in the nature as such. Yes, there is a uranium-234 which has got about 0.5 to 0.7% of the fissile material. But with that, you can't go for the bulk power generation that we are looking for it. So there is a need for having uranium-235 coming from various sources, because we have seen in the energy sector what has happened during the Ukrainian war or the Gulf War. So we should not get constrained. We should not get constrained even by the hegemony of a country applying, some sort of choke onto you, with which you cannot acquire the uranium fuel. So right now we are getting the fuel from three major sources. One is Canada, another is Russia, third is Kazakhstan. Fourth, Australia, we had signed the agreement way back in 2014-15, but it somehow didn't work because of the various arrangements which had to be put into the places for the non-NPT state that Australia was to give. So a lot of time has gone into it. Now, with this being signed, now Australia being the third, the producer of 1/3 of the uranium globally. So it is a resource. It is a source from which we can continue getting the uranium, which has to come, because even if we have fast breeder reactor, which we have already got it.
Yes.
Thorium as such doesn't produce. First, that thorium is converted into various tritium or something else, and from there then we get again uranium 233, and so finally uranium is the source from where we have to get. So fast breeder reactor coming into this, the earlier nuclear power stations being with us, 24 right now already producing, and another 11 going into this. So we need a continued supply of uranium 235 that has to come. So this was the arrangements which had to be done. India produces very little of uranium 235. So we can have as a standby or some other uses also that can happen. Now, having said all this, now Australia will be giving us this uranium 235 in a concentrate form. Remember, Canada gives us the rich ore. Kazakhstan gives us the rich ore. Only Russia gives us the cake, and now cake will be coming from Russia, which has to be made into the pellet form, into the rod, and then finally it will be going for power generation. So these small intricacies will be coming there. And of course, we must remember that when we produce, uranium 233 in the fast breeder reactor, India must look at its scientists to have a way into which the lot of uranium 233 which will be produced in the fast breeder reactor second stage can be used in the other reactors where right now conventionally we are using uranium 235. That answer has to be gotten, because this will be a continued source of uranium 233 generation here in India, massive amount of it. So that India also must have a look whether the existing or the future reactors using uranium 235 can also use uranium 233 rods into it, although uranium 233 is not all that stable. It has got various implications in the way. So scientists will have to look into it. And I think this is the best time for India to go into this particular agreement, so that our confirmed source remains there. Australia is very good friend of India. We have got very good arrangements with Australia. We have recently signed the free trade agreement with Australia. So a lot of plus points are there in importing uranium from Australia. And
Absolutely.
even if sometime, some hegemony of some country comes up there, Australia will still remain as a firm supplier. So we wish the country, the PM, the entire scientific community all the best, so that this continued source of supply remains there.
Absolutely. I'd also, on that note, like to rope in Dr. Sharad Kohli, who's been waiting very patiently. Dr. Kohli, as Dr. Dua pointed out, from Tarapur in 1962 to now, criticality in Kundankulam in April 2026, we have come a very long way. India, in fact, has doubled its installed nuclear capacity over the past decade. But nuclear power at large still contributes only about 3% of the country's electricity generation. We have an ambitious goal, 100 gigawatts nuclear power generation by 2047, which would account for about 10% of our energy needs. What, in your opinion, really needs to be worked upon?
Well, I think, Pia, what needs to be worked upon now is working on technology. And of course, this particular agreement with Australia is going to augment our supplies. There was a supply constraint, as my previous panelists have pointed out, Canada, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, but it wasn't enough, obviously, because our first target is to reach about 25 gigawatts in the next 4 or 5 years. Then 2047, 100 gigawatts looks a bit ambitious right now, but then yes, it's always good to set targets. Now, if you look at the imports from Australia, it's not that we have not been importing uranium at all. We have a trade deficit with Australia as of now, Pia, and we are importing about $16 to $18 billion worth of goods, and we export about 8 to 9, so a total of about $25 to $27 billion of bilateral trade that we have. And uranium is in the list. Not many people know, we import a lot of gold as well from Australia, which the Prime Minister spoke about, in the month of May. I remember when he asked people not to buy gold for 1 year because gold was taking away a substantial chunk of our forex reserves, $72 billion for that matter last year. So gold is already being imported. There is coal, there is LNG, there is wool, there is copper, there is uranium, and there is aluminium. We are already importing. It's just that we need to augment this relationship. We need to augment the supplies if we need to reach, because uranium per se, although this is a technical matter, but what I'm told is 1 kilo of uranium can produce 24 kWh of heat energy by using the fission method. And it also is not as bad environment-wise as compared to fossil fuels like coal and so on and so forth. It doesn't require too much of land as well. So I think this is one of the future sources of energy which India badly needs. If you look at the energy situation in India, if you leave out some of the larger cities in India, when you move away from the metro cities, most of the states still, although we say we are energy secure right now, but then you see there is load shedding, there is power shedding, and there is a shortage of energy, especially in the rural part of the country. So I feel that augmentation of these supplies from Australia will definitely help. We are also exporting to Australia. I'm sure the Prime Minister during his visit has also been able to augment the exports, because we are exporting what we export normally to America, things like leather, gems and jewelry, textile, pharmaceuticals, the standard export items that we have, where we have specialization. But then there is a trade deficit. I'm sure this would also be on the mind of the delegation which has gone with the Prime Minister. And this augmentation of uranium import is definitely going to help us. It is going to take us towards Viksit Bharat 2047, because one of the characteristics of Viksit Bharat would be that there has to be no power shortages, because one of the features that you typically outline a country who's fully developed is that there should be no power shortage, ideally speaking. So I'm sure that is on Prime Minister's mind. And another very quick comment which got a touch of politics. A lot of people here are talking about Prime Minister's foreign trips, that he's making these frequent trips here and there. Well, I think they don't go on to dissect that what is the takeaway for India. If uranium is a takeaway, maybe a common man may not understand how uranium is going to help us. But then when you deep dive, when you listen to discussions like these, you come to know that how important uranium is. If you're getting a 24-hour power supply in some part of the country, there could be a uranium civil nuclear reactor behind it. So I think people need to understand that he would, for every hour that he spends in these countries, and he just finished Indonesia, he did a defense deal, now he's in Australia, he's heading for New Zealand. I think every hour spent is being put to productive use of the country. So people should not view it from the point of view of just a foreign tour by the Prime Minister. There's a lot which the whole country has to take away from those tours, and uranium for Australia becomes one of them. Pia.
All right, with that, I would like to thank all my panelists for having taken out their time to join this very insightful discussion and share their insights and opinions. On that note, viewers, due to paucity of time, we dip into a quick short break. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX.